Continuing our team coverage on the helicopter and plane collision near Reagan National Airport, we want to bring in Jess Arnold now for some more context on about what happened. Good morning, Jess.
Good morning. Yeah, I was listening into that 7:30 presser, so we're getting ready here for the Wichita presser, of course, where we'll hear more over there. We were waiting to hear, of course, for American Airlines CEO. Isam, and he was able to talk at the presser a bit about what they've been doing to mobilize their crews. We shared a little bit about his overnight statement, but he shared that they do have on-the-ground teams. They have their GO team. They have specialists in dealing with these families, who are now suffering this unimaginable loss. So he said they have some of those stationed both at DCA as well as stationed in Wichita. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more about those teams in Wichita at this presser, which should be starting here any minute. Again, that other one wrapped up about an hour ago. Now, in addition to him, we heard from the Transportation Secretary as well as, the American Airlines CEO talk about the flight paths here. They both said they appeared to be standard flight paths, obviously, until that moment when this collision happened. So they're still investigating, of course, what exactly caused that. American Airlines said that their focus is on these families as well as their crew members. They're supporting PSA, which was that subsidiary that is. And now we're going to send it out to Wichita for that press conference.
I want to first thank also the first responders in Washington, D.C., who have worked tirelessly throughout the night. And at this time, we have been told that there are no survivors. We mourn with all those who have been impacted. This is a terrible tragedy that will unite those in Washington, D.C. and Wichita, Kansas forever. As we know, an American Airlines jet carrying 64 people plunged into the Potomac River after colliding in midair with an Army helicopter on Wednesday night. We're hearing recovery teams in Washington, D.C. had pulled more than 24 bodies from the icy waters. We do not know yet final confirmation on all of the individuals who were on that flight. And of course, we will share that information, but not before families have been first contacted. Congressman Ron Estes is here with us this morning, and I would like to invite him to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mayor Wu, and thank you for all of the city council members for holding this press conference to help share this information. This is such a tragic day for our community. So many of us will be touched by people that we know directly or indirectly that were victims of this tragic tragedy that happened. Overnight, I was in contact with the White House Situation Room, getting updates as they were going through the process. I spoke last night with the chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board as well. And at that point in time, their investigation was they were getting prepared for that. But they were waiting for the search and rescue efforts to conclude before they started that investigation. So I know this is going to be a tragedy that touches our community. We have such a steep history of being involved in aviation, and being a close-knit community like we are, it's going to have consequences for years to come. I do want to make a general comment about air safety in general. I mean, we have the safest skies in any country in the world. And when a tragic incident like this happens, obviously we want to do the investigation, which will take days and weeks to go through that process, and to make sure that we can prevent accidents like this from happening in the future. And so I appreciate all of the updates we'll have this morning. I know there will be more coming out, both from here in Wichita as well as in D.C. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman. We also have a representative for Senator Jerry Moran who will share a statement as well.
Mayor, thank you. I'm Mike Zammerslow with United States Senator Jerry Moran's office. The senator asked me to share the following statement on his behalf. Wichita is located in the heart of our nation, and today we are grieving. I received confirmation this morning that no one survived the crash of American Airlines Flight 5342. This is a sad day for Kansans and our nation as we awaken this morning to this tragic news. My heart grieves for the lives that were lost and their loved ones, who are now learning that their friend or family member was among those who perished. There will be much to learn and to do in the coming days in the wake of this tragedy. But today, please join me in praying for Kansas. May God comfort those who are mourning. Mayor, thank you.
I would like to now ask our airports director, Jesse Romo, to provide some updates. And again, a lot of the details are still waiting for confirmation. And so we ask that Jesse give us the latest that we have confirmed.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Jesse Romo, Director of Airports, Wichita Airport Authority. I don't have a lot of official information to share. We will get that directly from NTSB. American Airlines will be providing the official updates and information. They do have a newsroom that you can go to online. The website is aa.com/newsroom. There is also an 800 number to utilize for the friends and family members of the people aboard the flight, 1-800-679-8215. I will say that airport staff did activate our family incident support team last night. And so if family members did show up to the terminal to have additional information, even for support, we were there with them with our team of volunteers, along with other airline staff and representatives. The airport remains open. There is air traffic continuing. Right now, we do have fog, so I would ask everybody to please drive safe as you're headed to the airport or are traveling today, and keep up with your airline for additional information. And right now, that's all I have. Thank you.
I would like to say that Director Jesse Romo, City Manager Bob Layton, and several council members were at the airport last night as the care team got activated. I also learned from American Airlines this morning that additional care team members have come to Wichita and will be providing support for families as well as crew members. I am in direct contact with American Airlines to find out the confirmed information to provide to all of you. But I want to reiterate that any information should go to their hotline, especially for families. And that number that Jesse said already, but I will remind everyone to use again, is 1-800-679-8215. In addition, this afternoon at high noon, the Wichita City Council, in contact with the Greater Wichita Ministerial League and multiple faith leaders in Wichita, will be coming together for a community-wide prayer. And we ask that anyone who would like to join us to come to City Hall here in downtown Wichita for that community prayer. All are welcome. At this time, our community needs to come together to support the family members who have been impacted, to come together in honor of those individuals on that flight. And as a council, we will lead in bringing this community together to pray for our community, but also move our community to know that there are resources. And as a city, we will have additional resources, especially for staff who have been impacted. And I am again grieving with everyone in our community and those in Washington, D.C. due to this very tragic incident that happened. We will take a few questions at this time.
Do you know how many of the passengers are Wichita residents versus traveling back home to D.C. or somewhere else?
At this time, we don't have that information, and I know that we don't have the manifest at this moment.
Have you spoken with any family or friends of members or people in the plane?
The care team was activated last night, and one family was there. And I want to say thank you to our local media partners who were respectful here in Wichita. That says a lot about our community. The care team was there to provide comfort for that family, and the council members were also there to provide comfort for them. But at this time, that is all we have in regards to family members.
Do you know how many families did show up last night?
Only one.
Was everything normal at the beginning of this flight taking off from Wichita?
Say that again.
Was the flight normal taking off?
I will have Jesse.
Yes, to our knowledge, everything occurred as normal, so there was no abnormality to the operation.
Will this flight continue as normal tonight? Or is this flight on hold? Any changes at all?
I know Reagan National was shut down for a while. They have plans to reopen the airport, and I haven't heard yet when exactly they're going to open it. And I haven't heard specifically for this flight, but if we do have additional information, that will come from American as well. And so if folks are looking to fly on that route, just need to continue to check with American Airlines.
Jesse, how many seats were on the plane on the 700? Was that 75, or do you know what it was configured to?
Yeah, well, good word. The configuration depends, for each aircraft, but it is approximately about 75 seats normally, and I would have to get specifics on that aircraft, but I do have that at this time.
Has there been any contact with Bombardier, especially with this being their plane?
No. No.
Do you know where they are in the process of contacting all the families?
No, we do not. And, most of this incident occurred at D.C. and is being managed by the local partners and federal agencies that are responding in the D.C. area. But as was asked earlier, the manifest will be managed by American Airlines, and that information will be disseminated through their official sources as well as NTSB.
I know you said the flight was operating just fine. Was it delayed or was it running late at any point during takeoff?
I don't believe so. I don't have that information, but I can look into that.
Can you tell us anything about figure skaters? Obviously, that were on the flight. You just hosted the U.S. National Championships. On social media, a lot of figure skaters coming out, just hoping for the best. Anything?
I understand that some of that information is out there on social media or through other media outlets, but it's not information that we can share at this time.
Mayor, can you talk about, we've heard from a few folks about how big this last weekend was with the U.S. Figure Skating Championship being held here in Wichita, and all of these young Olympic hopefuls, which would have grazed our living room in the future. Can you talk about just how big of an event this past weekend was and what it meant for the city to have these young skaters here in town?
It was truly an honor to have future Olympians and those who are at the highest competition level of figure skating right here in the Air Capital. We were so excited to have the opportunity to host the national championship. And even yesterday, I had folks tell me how wonderful these last few days have been with additional individuals that came into our community, whether to watch or to participate. So our community was really excited and thankful that everything went well with the championship. And so right now, we're just waiting for more information from U.S. Figure Skating that we can release. But right now, we're just hoping and praying again.
How do family and friends of folks on the plane get in touch with you all? I know there's a phone number for American, but if they want to connect with the local care team and they don't want to go to the airport, how do they do that?
They can reach out to the airport administration building.
Their phone number or anything?
I'm going to look that up because all of a sudden sleep deprivation kicked in and my mind went blank on the phone number, but let me respond back to you in just a second.
Should affected families be coming to the airport, or are you urging them to stay at home? What should they do?
Everyone responds to a tragic incident a little differently, and so if they do feel that they would be more comfortable in the terminal or coming out there to the airport, we're ready to help support them in any way we can. But there isn't any more information that we can share that they're already being shared with directly by the airline, and so they may want to stay at home as well.
Jesse, would you mind repeating this into the microphone? But that number that families can call is 316 946 4700.
4700 is the airport administration building.
Have city and Kansas state leaders been in contact with the U.S. Army about the helicopter? Can you speak about that a little bit?
Not about the helicopter. I have been in contact with several of our federal legislators who, again, are sending their condolences, but this was very early. That was yesterday or last night. In regards to any additional investigation, I don't have any.
Last evening, Senator Moran was in contact with the U.S. Department of Defense officials regarding your question, but also NTSB leadership, the CEO of American Airlines, and U.S. Department of Transportation leadership as well.
How closely will you all, Representative Extus and Senator Moran, work with the NTSB and the FAA to kind of stay abreast of getting to the bottom of what happened?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of information to gather around this process in terms of the flight plans and the incidents of what's happened, as well as what they discover through the recovery efforts. It's going to take some time, I know, for NTSB and the investigation team to go through that process, and so there'll be probably some slow release of information as they discover it and work through that. And I know that's frustrating for all of us to actually wait and not have the answers at our fingertips. Obviously, we're reaching out from our office, and both of the senators were in D.C. at the press conference last night, working through that as well. As I mentioned, I spoke last night with the chairwoman of the National Transportation Safety Board, and so she's got a team there at DCA and working together that information. So we'll keep in constant contact as we try to go through that.
Congressman, I assume you've been on this flight several times in the last year. Does it give you pause in terms of the amount of traffic? I know there's a lot of talk this morning about the amount of air traffic around Reagan National. Does this give you pause about that situation and how that's managed right now?
No, this particular flight's been in process for over a year, in use for over a year now. Obviously, it's important for us as a community to have connections, have a direct flight, particularly one of the most commonly routes that's traveled to in Washington, D.C. Obviously, with the Reagan Airport situated there on a river right across from Washington, D.C., there are some twists and turns that pilots and planes have to make as they're coming in and out of that airport. So it does require skill of the pilot to work through that. I don't have any hesitation. I know the major runway there at Washington Reagan is I think it's the busiest in the country for any one runway. The flight last night was on the secondary runway through that process, which is a little bit shorter, which is more appropriate for a plane the size of the CRJ that was flying in there. So it's there's always going to be that process as whether they're coming from the south, as it was last night, or on the approach from the north. But I wouldn't hesitate to continue to fly in and out of Washington Reagan Airport, and including on this particular flight and with this particular plane.
Thank you, sir.
When can we expect more information on how many people on the flight were from Wichita? How many were figure skaters?
And that's one of the frustrating things, I think, as we're trying to gather all this information. Obviously, there's There's a lot of concern about how families are going to grieve and find out, in some cases, find out the information. I know a lot of us in the community, myself and others, have been reached out by lots of friends around finding out whether we were on the plane or whether we knew of people that were on the plane through that process. I do know there's a time where we need to make sure that the families get the opportunity to be notified and the next of kin being allowed to know and being able to go through that process before we make that information public. So even though I'd like to be able to know that and know some of those answers to some of those questions, like how many people were from Wichita, how many people were from the Washington D.C. area, it just unfortunately takes a little bit of time to gather all of that and make sure that the process is followed.
And who's in charge of notifying families?
As far as the notification, this morning, the Secretary of Transportation Duffy in the press conference in Washington, D.C. said that a lot of that notification is going to transition to NTSB and FAA, as well as working with American Airlines and going through that process.
Congressman, you talked about how air travel is so safe. What would you say to people who have a little pause, of taking flights right now anywhere?
Yeah, I think when you look at overall track record in terms of how safe within the United States air traffic is, I think it's been 16 plus years since there's been a commercial airplane incident in the country, and you obviously look at the number of miles and number of passengers flown versus other modes of transportation. I still feel confident that we have strong safety measures in our air traffic system, and obviously we want to make sure that if there are any areas that need to be improved, we work on those, and if there's something to be learned out of this lesson in terms of something that happened in this particular instance, that we'll take that lesson and move forward. Thank you.
The Federal Transportation Secretary called the incident absolutely preventable. Do you agree with that?
I'm sorry, say what?
The Federal Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, called the incident preventable this morning. Do you agree with that assessment?
I believe he has some more information than I do in terms of some of those details. Obviously, when we look at what we've been able to see so far, we've kind of conceded some of the flight path of the Flight 5342, as well as the flight path of the helicopter. What I haven't heard yet is all of the traffic between the air traffic control system and both the helicopter as well as the airplane. He may have access to some information that I don't have. Obviously, we want to make sure that there aren't incidents like this ever in the country. So we want to make sure that we put in procedures that work to make sure that we do prevent them.
Thank you again, Congressman. On behalf of the Wichita City Council again, it was just a year ago that we started this flight. I was actually there alongside Councilmember Glasscock and Councilmember Johnson. It was January 8th, 2024. The first flight included Congressman Estes and Senator Moran, who took that first flight from Wichita to Washington, D.C. We were very honored to have gotten that flight and continue to advocate for those nonstop flights out of our community. So again, this is a true tragedy, and one that this council and myself want all of our community members to know that our hearts are heavy. They're also grieving. And we will provide the support that we can to those who have been affected. I want to say thank you, though, to several people who showed up last night and prayed over this council and those who are grieving. Pastor Bob Beckler, Pastor Ben Staley, and Rabbi Greenberg, who also showed up last night. I also want to thank the care team that is continuing to be at the airport there for families affected, as well as crew members affected and staff members affected. And I want to say thank you to City Manager Layton and his staff for gathering us all this morning and allowing us to also have a community-wide prayer in the council chambers here at City Hall at noon. Again, we will continue to keep the community updated as we have confirmed information. And we invite all of you to come to the community-wide prayer, and we welcome anyone to join us. Tragedies like this remind us that we are one community. Whether a Wichitan, a Kansan, or an American, we are one community. And in times of struggle, we do come together in grief and sadness to lift one another. Wichita is stronger because we are together. Once again, we offer our deepest condolences to all the individuals whose lives were lost and to the families who are grieving. Thank you.
Yeah, so we got to hear there from Wichita Mayor Lily Wu, of course, starting out just expressing their devastation and expressing their condolences. And she even got choked up at the start of this, just thinking about this unimaginable tragedy. So I want you to hear from her again.
We mourn with all those who have been impacted. This is a terrible tragedy that will unite those in Washington, D.C. and Wichita, Kansas forever.
Absolutely, it will. Both communities are thinking of the other this morning. We're still working to get more information on how many of those passengers might have been from Wichita, how many from this area. There are care teams set up at both airports, both by the airports as well as American Airlines, who is the lead on this. The Wichita mayor did say direct any questions to that American Airlines helpline, which I want to read for you one more time, 1-800-679-8215. Of course, it's the early stages of this investigation. They don't want to release anything before the families are notified, so we'll have to update you throughout the day, guys.